pals. Today we're going to talk about a story called Louisiana's Way Home. This book is Kate DiCamillo's beautiful follow-up to a book called Raymie Nightingale. I'm not sure if you guys read that one or not. Louisiana Elefante is back. Story full of colorful characters. And I thought I'd start it with just a quote from the beginning of the book. She's writing a story, she's writing to us, or she's writing to someone, and she's saying, I have to write this down. She says, if you have not left your home in the middle of the night without even giving it a backward glance, if you have not left your cat and your friends, and also a one-eyed dog named Buddy, without getting to tell any of them goodbye, if you have not stood on the side of the road in Georgia, somewhere just past the irrevocable state line, and waited for someone to come along and give you a ride, well, then you cannot understand the desperation that was in my heart that day. So what did you guys think of the book? Who enjoyed the book? A quick, if you were to tell somebody about this book, what would you say it's about?
So basically, Louisiana, her granny has a lot of middle of the night ideas. So Louisiana is forced to leave Georgia and go to Florida. No, wait, no, go to Georgia, I think. Yeah.
Yes,
So
Florida.
yeah, okay. And then she feels terrible about leaving all her best friends and her pets. So she's usually really mad at Granny. And what happens is they have this thing called a curse of sundering. It's from Granny, and Louisiana was always worried about that. So Granny suddenly has this toothache, and they think it's part of the curse of sundering. So Louisiana actually drives a car and tries to go to a dentist. And then the dentist says this Granny has terrible teeth. All of her teeth are basically gone, and they're going to be replaced. So then they go and they stay at a motel, and then they meet this woman called Miss Burness, and she isn't the nicest person, but yes. And then while that, Louisiana meets this little boy named Burke Allen, and he likes to get things out of the vending machine, give it to her. So Louisiana really likes him because she thinks
Okay,
he's
so stop there. There's a good intro. I should have said an intro to the story so that we could go on from there. I did that last time too. So let's try now from that. Excellent way to start the story. You've given us an idea of what's happening. Poor Louisiana gets up in the middle of the night because Granny says, let's go. And they end up in this little town. In the beginning of the book, she says, a great deal of the story is extremely sad. Did you believe her? What kind of story did you think you were about to read when you opened up that book?
Kind of believed her because, well, she's the one writing the story, and so why wouldn't she know? And
Sure.
but also it's kind of a story of hope, I guess.
Yes. Yes, good thinking. Why would you say it's a story of hope?
Well, because she loses all of her friends and everyone that she loves, but then she finds her own family in Florida.
There's a well to put.
I believed her because she's the one writing this story. I also, when I started to read the book, and I got to the end, I actually I agree with Kira, but I also think it's a story of redemption and hope
I agree.
because she's facing the curse of sundering, and she does a lot of bad things sometimes, but she made up to them.
Right. She did bad things, but they were always in the sense of how to get to the next step or how to get her and her granny in the right place, right? What is the curse of sundering?
It means to tear apart, and so she thinks that she'll always be leaving people and things.
She thinks it's her curse, that she's always going to have to be torn apart from others that she wanted to be with. Because of the great-grandfather, right? Something happened to her grandmother's father who left grandmother. It's a little bit of a story, but here's Granny left with the curse of sun. They get on the road and Granny's tooth starts to hurt. What do you think of what happened after that? What happens after Granny's tooth starts to hurt and Granny just gives up like?
Louisiana, even though she's only 12, she went to take the wheel and tried to drive to a dentist while I think she was having a hard time trying to get off the highway.
Right. What would you guys? What would you do if you had to get in that car seat and start driving your granny down the highway? Oh my goodness.
I feel really nervous and put on the spot because you kind of have a life on the line. And also, I think that by Louisiana taking the wheel, that means that she actually really cares about her granny, even though she's mad, because she's willing to somewhat risk her life so that her granny can get help.
Oh, there's a nice thing to think about. Yeah, very good idea. Kayla.
So before you would drive a car, you would look at all your options that you have, because driving a car is not the best thing you can do at that moment. But I think that she did the right thing to help her granny.
Right, right. And I thought it was interesting how she said, oh, hey, I got this thing. This driving's pretty easy. Then she had to get off the highway and figure out how to stop, and then she got in trouble. So anyway, she ends up in this little town, has to find a dentist, and she walks into a dentist's office and confronts the receptionist there. Do you remember that happening?
She meets a person named Mrs. Ivy, and they just talked about how her lips were really thin and that she always looked mad and stuff. Mrs. Ivy wasn't very happy to see Louisiana and Granny come in.
So, like Lauren said, Miss Ivy's lips got thinner and thinner, and it just looked like she was super mad. And then Louisiana also said this thing about a battle of the wills. And
Yes.
also, I wanted to say that when I read the book, curlers, they kind of represented a thing to me, like because Miss Ivy had them, I think Miss Bernice had them, and Miss
Oh,
Lulu had them, and I
oh,
think it's sort of like a thing of selfishness because everybody would do
oh.
that.
What an interesting
Thanks.
perspective. Yes, I hadn't noted that she had curlers too.
And that Mrs. Bernice and Mrs. Ivy are very similar because they both aren't very fond of Louisiana, and well, they both work at a front desk.
And again, Bursar, she needs her nets when she goes to find a place to stay that night. But at the dentist office, Louisiana, with the battle of wills, as Danya says, got her way into the dentist, and Granny got her teeth taken care of. I mean, all of them. She lost all her teeth, so she's really hurting. Louisiana then has to be the adult, almost like you think here, and takes them to this hotel where she meets the second woman, who definitely is in curlers, who definitely doesn't like her and says right from the beginning, "Where's your money?" And so the story starts to unfold. They stay there that night. The next day, she meets a boy named Burke. What can you tell me about Burke?
Well, in the book, when I read on, I realized that he was generous. It says a quote in there. Burke is a person, when you ask him for one thing, he'll give you two.
Oh, I love that quote. Yep. But now at first you don't see that part of it. At first you see he wants to steal the food from the little machine for her. But you later find out that he's quite an interesting guy.
I think at first he's kind of mischievous and like random, but then he becomes very friendly and honest and helpful
And he's right there by her side. He's a good guy.
Oh, Louisiana also said this, like, many people have goodness in their hearts. So I think Bark is one of them too.
Louisiana has a way of reading people right away, and her words tell you how she reads the people. The dentist receptionist with the thin lips, Bernice with the curlers in her hair and not a nice way of being. So now they're stuck there and there's no money, and Louisiana has to figure out what to do. And before Bernice sends her on her way, wherever they would go, she's going to do something for money. What is she going to do in exchange for getting to stay there?
He's going to sing at funerals.
Right. She's going to sing at the funerals. So she goes there and she starts singing. What's the reaction from the two ladies and all the people in the church?
They're surprised of how well she was able to sing, and around in the middle of the song, they had, I think, like napkins and tissues.
So Louisiana sang very well, and Miss Bernice might like act like a mean person, not that much, but once Louisiana sang and Bernice got to know her more well, I think she appreciates her more, but doesn't really show it.
Right. They're not good at showing that kind of thing.
I think Bernice is kind of mean to Louisiana because she has a hard luck, when she says, I don't want to hear a hard luck story of your own, because she has one of her own. She had a divorce. And sometimes when bad things happen to you, it makes you be mean to other people.
Or suspicious, or not wanting to care about them, or it closes you off. And both those ladies seem a little closed off. You believe Louisiana is cursed.
I think she's kind of cursing herself because
Oh, explain that.
she's the one who really thinks it. She could easily, well, not easily, but she could go against the curse. There's a lot of times when she isn't sundering, like she stays with Burke and
She finds a way.
yeah.
When she's not busy worrying about the fact that she's cursed, she seems to find a way, or in spite of it, she seems to find a way, right? And those people around her help her find her way.
Yeah,
Anybody else? Oh, go ahead, Kara.
I think she's just kind of self-conscious, and whenever she thinks she's cursed, that's really when she's cursed.
Oh, good point. Very good point. Look at all the people agreeing with you. Danya?
Yeah, so like Kira said, it's just herself because like curses and things aren't real unless you think they're real. So there's two reasons. Even if she was related to Granny, she could have controlled it and thought positive thoughts. And when she was with Burke and stuff, she was having a fun and she was doing good things. And that's when she didn't have the curse. So it's just all mental. And since she's not even related to Granny, then it's definitely not her curse.
Which we find out in the end. Is Granny cursed?
I don't really think Granny's cursed. I mean, bad things have happened to her, but bad things happen to everybody.
Right. Kayla, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna agree with Lauren. It was just when her father left her was really when it hurt her, and
When the father left Granny? Yeah.
yeah,
And
when
it hurt
she,
her.
hmm
Right. And so therefore it started, right? Kira?
I kind of feel like she's using the curse to cover up her sadness. Like she knows that she's always leaving people, but kind of as an excuse, she just says it's on the curse.
Or the curse is the reason for all of her troubles. I know sometimes when you get up in the morning and things just don't go right, and you lose a sock, or you do this, and the next thing you do it too, and you go, oh, it's just a bad day, I'm not going to, and you kind of take yourself down the wrong road, which is kind of what Granny has done. She's hurt from her father, and for evermore she feels that there's this curse that's going to follow her. We do learn in the end that she's not really Granny, which was quite a surprise, don't you think?
So when Louisiana found the note and she read it, I was really surprised to hear that Granny was just a random person that found Louisiana in an alley next to a five and dime called Louisiana, and
Right.
that parents weren't famous acrobats, and that's kind of why it's called Louisiana's Way Home, because she also has to figure out who she is.
Oh, perfect.
I agree with Lauren. The two things that surprised me in the note was that about how the curse of sundering actually begun when her father left her, and that Louisiana's parents were not known. And as she says a lot in the story, I don't know who I am. She said to Brooke Allen, I should have never existed.
She was really down and out then, wasn't she?
It's just like Granny's excuse for their parents. They were trapeze artists and they were called the Flying Elefantes. That is like a pretty good excuse in my opinion. But Burke Allen wanted to be part of a circus, so I was just thinking, shouldn't have Burke Allen known about them if he really wanted to be in a circus or something?
Oh, perhaps. That's an interesting point. So Burke brings her over to his house and he makes her some bologna sandwiches. And she says, Daddy, Granny always spoke poorly of bologna. Hey, these bologna sandwiches tasted pretty good. There's one more reason for me to doubt Granny and the truth of her utterances, the things that she says. So Louisiana, what does she mean when she wonders, if you're the kind of person who lies about something as small as bologna, what would stop you from lying about something bigger and more important things? And she says this about midway in the story. So it kind of feels like she's going, what's going on with Granny? Is she telling me other lies? I've believed everything she's ever said, but I don't know so much now. What do you think she means by that?
I think she means, so she's starting to figure out that she's starting to figure out that Granny really isn't Granny, but she doesn't really know
She
yet.
doesn't know. We're getting hints now, aren't we, about what's to come. Okay, and then she gets this letter from Granny. What did you think Granny's letter was going to say? How did you feel after you read it? Did Louisiana react the same way you would have if you gotten a letter that told you the person was supposed to be there taking care of you? What did you think?
I was shocked, and I actually reread it just to make sure that I didn't miss anything.
Well said, I agree.
In the book, it says she felt a dark thing on her chest, and I could kind of feel it too.
Oh, I know. Go ahead.
I would definitely not run through some dark woods, especially if I don't know any directions.
Oh, that's a good point.
Before I read the letter, when I found out that Granny wasn't in her bed, I thought the note would be about why she had to leave her.
Right. Well, it's true. Granny's still a question in our mind. Even at the end of the story, she's kind of she's gone now, and we're not quite sure what happened. But here's this letter that explains that she picked Louisiana up on the side of the road there. Granny's letter is then blown away and lost to Louisiana. Does that affect the power that Granny's words have over her? Is there a power in writing things down? What happens if the writing is gone? Does it make any difference if the writing is gone? When it blew away? Lauren said she had to read it twice. Well, I'd want to go back and read it again and again too to make sure it was real. But now it's gone. You have a comment on that, Danya?
Well, even if the writing's gone, the truth is still there, because she should know that Granny isn't part of her, isn't like related. Also, if I want to like talk about more of the letter and how Granny left, it's like Louisiana really doesn't forgive Granny until the end of the book. And
Right.
if I was forced to leave my best friends and things I wanted, I would have acted similarly to Louisiana. But when Louisiana had like more of a loving family with the Burke Allens, she understood how Granny would feel, because she missed because Granny missed her dad and stuff. So she knew it was time Granny's time to face her destiny.
Oh, well said.
I would kind of want to keep it because you can tell that she still kind of cares about Granny, and that's like the last thing of her that she has. But also, why would you want to hold on to something that proves that you don't know who you are?
Or that hurts so much. So it's kind of a double piece. One, you'd want to hold on it because it's the last thing of Granny that she had. And two, why would you want to hold on to it when you just realized you're not anything like what you thought you were? Now, who are you? And she's feeling like, who am I now? And she says that to Burke. One of you just said that. How does sharing your story help heal? Even writing it down or sharing with someone else, how does that help her or help you?
Because when you tell somebody what's been bothering you, then you finally get it off your chest, and it feels good to tell somebody else instead of keeping it bottled up inside of you.
Right.
So it's healthy, and that will make her feel worse.
Right. So it helps to just get it out.
I agree with Lauren, and like Louisiana said, most people have like goodness in their hearts, and if most people do, she'd probably be telling someone who does, and they could have sympathy for her and try and make her feel better about it.
Yeah, I agree with Lauren and Kira. When you write things down, it's better to share it than to keep it in.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, in the end, she's saying she's writing this for Granny. and telling her that she forgives her.
Right. So she finally tells the Reverend, and it makes her feel different. It takes that weight off of her.
I feel like she's writing it at the end. She says that she's writing this for Granny because Granny doesn't really understand how she's feeling, and if she read what Louisiana wrote, she could know how hard it was for her when she just left.
When she just left, or when all those things happened from the middle of the night when they left on.
Because Granny was being kind of selfish. Like, just because her dad was calling her, she didn't have to like bring Louisiana with her. Like, Louisiana could live with Raymie or someone.
Right.
Thinking of what's good for Louisiana.
Right. So we really are, I think we're still a little confused on Granny. Louisiana's the one who finds herself in this story. She's the one who really shines, and she's just a little girl when she does all this. Situation, Louisiana thinks the world was beautiful. It surprised me how beautiful it kept on insisting on being, in spite of all the lies. It was beautiful. He said that, I think, when she was up in the tree. Do you remember when she finally climbed the tree? She was scared of trees. She was scared of heights. She was never going to go up anywhere. And here suddenly she's up there.
So in the book, she says many times that the world is infinitesimally spinning. And I feel like that kind of connects to how her world is always changing.
Very good insight. Wow.
Like if
yes.
Like 1 hour she's at home, and then the next she's in Florida at a motel singing so that she can stay there.
Right. It definitely was spinning. Yeah. So let's see. So getting Louisiana up to climb that tree was really hard on the motel sign. And how did she change from one scene to the other? So in the beginning, she was never going to go up and scared of heights. And the second time she finally went up, how did she change between those two pieces?
Well, she did go through a lot. She went through a lot of things like burns and everything, and also she talks a lot about Pinocchio and things in the story. So she thought the Big Dipper constellation was Pinocchio's nose, and when Burke Allen said the Big Dipper, like the North Star, always tells you where you're going, she has like a lot of comfort in her, so it feels comfortable for her. So I think after she goes through all of that stuff, she feels more comfortable and more brave to do things she never has done before.
Right.
Yeah, like when she reads the letter, like she doesn't know who she is, and so she begins finding out who she is, and she's kind of altering herself for the better.
Yeah, good point. So Pinocchio, and there's the blue fairy. Remember the blue fairy? She saw it once when she was almost drowning, and the blue fairy comes back for this and that. It's almost like this story is a little bit of a fairy tale, don't you think? It was set in the 1970s, but it was kind of a fairy tale with what the things that are happening. When she kept speaking about Pinocchio and the blue fairy, and her finding her way. She was kind of like a little princess finding her way. If you kind of recount it like a fairy tale, it's an interesting way to look at it. Louisiana realizes she took her fear of heights for granted, and when she puts it to the test, she discovers bravery within herself. What other things do we take for granted about ourselves without always checking to see if they're really true? Like she thought, well, I'm scared of heights, I can't go. But then she finds within her that there's possibilities here. So sometimes we block our way by just fearing. And once we let ourselves go and open up a little, there's more possibilities. And I think Burke helped her find those possibilities quite often. He experiences lots of losses over the course of the story. Losing things, losing people, getting lost in the woods, feeling lost in her own life. How does she react to them differently? How do different types of loss affect the different ways that she reacted? All those different losses, how did she do? She seemed to, can you make a comment on that? She seemed to come up and get past them. She seemed to grow anyway because she was strong enough within, right? Do you have anything to say about how she got past all these things? How would you deal with all that stuff?
First, the first loss she ever had was leaving her pets and friends. So how she acted to that was she was mad at her granny, and I would probably do the same thing too, because there's no other way to show that anger. Next thing was Granny always won at the Battle of the Wills and things, and she was just super mad. And then Granny actually left her, so that would just feel so disappointing.
Oh,
And then Louisiana, how she dealt with those things was she knew she had a loving family with Burke Allen and Betty Allen, everybody. So she knew that she could count up to them. So she went to find them so she could actually be more happier. And when she did, she felt much better about that.
okay. Well, well said. Well said.
I know if I was in Louisiana's position, I would probably not be able to deal with it as well as she did, because although it does seem like she's kind of a mess, she did really handle it very well.
Didn't she though? She's got spunk, doesn't she? She comes through all these things with on top, and it's because she's a strong little girl, and she's learning what to believe in herself all through the story. I think Louisiana, or how did you think Louisiana would decide to stay with the Allens? Remember, she wasn't sure what to do. They offered her that. How do you feel about her decision and what she decided to do?
I was a little bit disappointed because like she was leaving her best friends, but also I was happy because Burke really helped her out, and if she just kind of left him, it would be a little sad.
If I was in Louisiana's shoes, I would probably find a way to go back home and live with my friends. But Louisiana, she knew that she couldn't live by herself, and she had this super family who was super nice to her. And how she finally made her decision was when she didn't win the cake raffle. So, but she knew that even if she lost, everybody would be there to comfort her because the grandpa said that I can win by you every single cakes, and so she felt really comfortable after that.
She found her spot,
Yeah.
and okay, were you surprised that she didn't win? Do you think she was going to win when it happened? Didn't it kind of build it up to say, oh, and then she didn't?
I think she decided to live with the Burke with the Allens because she had people who looked out for her.
Yes, they were going to be there for her. Then there's a whole family of them. Grandpa, mom, Burke, his dad. Isn't that funny that all three of the grandpa, dad, and Burke all had the same names, the first, the second, the third, and so on.
I have read this book many times, but so even on like the third time, like I kind of forgot about this part, and when I was rereading it, I really thought she was gonna win. But then,
Really? Even in rereading, because it builds you up that way. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, but like when she didn't, I don't know, I wasn't really that surprised.
Right. Because then she had this realization anyway. She actually won in the whole thing, didn't she? Because she won within her after she found where she was going to get to stay. Were you glad when you read Louisiana had been telling her whole story to Granny the whole time? Were you surprised? Remember, she said in the beginning, I got to tell the story. And here in the end, you find out it's written to Granny.
I was a little surprised because of how she's so mad at Granny throughout the book. Like if I were her, I would kind of just want to shut Granny out of my life because like she brought you away from her friends and lied to you.
Right.
There's really no reason to forgive her too much.
Yeah, you're not ready there, are you?
So, yeah, I was surprised that she was writing this story for Granny. In the beginning, I thought she was sharing her story to everyone to know what happened to Louisiana
Yes,
Elefante.
I agree.
And
I did too.
yeah, so, but with her, she was writing to she might be writing to Granny because of telling her what happened to her, how she's carrying on life right now, and that she forgave her.
So it's kind of forgiving.
Forgiveness is a really hard thing to do, and it's a really strong thing too. But again, if I was in the shoes, I wouldn't have done it. But it's kind of a little fact. If you forgive people, it actually makes you feel better too. So
Right.
Louisiana would have been so mad at Granny, but if she actually forgave her, she would have felt better. But it's still a really hard thing to do, though.
Well put. A good insight there. Very good. Kira.
feel like she didn't realize that she was writing it to Granny until the end too, because at the start she said so that people would know what happened to Louisiana Elefante.
She started to tell the story, and then it developed into talking to Granny. Maybe it was the whole time, but it was very healing when she was able to do that. We talked about that earlier, about being healing when you talk to someone like she did to the Reverend. Well, here she's healing as well because she's telling her story.
I feel like she realized that she was writing it to Granny because Granny kind of just left on no notice. And so I feel like there's a lot of things that she wanted to tell her. And so she altered the story so that it would be written to Granny.
Interesting. Very interesting insight there.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised at the end when she said that it was written for Granny, because in the beginning, it definitely sounded like they were talking to everybody or whoever was reading the book, and so I just kind of thought that they were just trying to mislead us into the end, so then they would say that it's for Granny or something like that.
Yeah. But I think there was a healing going on by writing it down, just like telling it to the Reverend. Writing down helps a lot. Keeping a diary always is a great way to get things off your chest. And so she grew from writing that story.
So yeah, when you write things down, you feel better about sharing it with others. And when you write things down, you can remember the memories you've had.
Louisiana's quest for her self-discovery, it's kind of what the whole story is about, her discovering herself, results in many changes. Why is it, do you think, that stories can have such powerful ways to encourage us as readers for self-discovery? How do these books do something for us when we read it and we see these things happening to people like Louisiana? What does it do for us? What do stories do for us when they have such powerful self-discovery, or whatever else the lesson is in the story?
A high chance that this probably won't happen to you.
True.
And so it kind of gives you insight on how life would be like if you had a hard life, and it'll teach you how to deal with smaller problems. Because like, this is a really big problem, you can relate it to different problems as well.
Oh, well put.
Sometimes the lesson teach you. But sometimes the stories, it's sometimes sad stories for the character, and it teaches that you have it better than others sometimes, and that you should be thankful and grateful for what you have.
Right, that you may think things are pretty bad for you, but when you read something like this, you think, oh my goodness, I have it pretty good, don't I? Good point.
Sometimes stories are there just to entertain you, but stories like these, they usually teach you lessons or themes, and it also helps you get more deeper into the book. And when you get deeper into the book, you can also, like Kira said, you can solve a little smaller problems in life, and it also helps a lot when you get deeper into books.
And the more you read, the more you understand other people, right? The more you read, the better you understand yourself. You understand, like Kayla said, that you don't have it so bad, you have it pretty good, and you should be thankful for what you have. And when you read about other people, you understand where they come from, and so you have empathy for them.
Even though this is a relatively short book, I feel like they did pack a lot of lessons and insight into
Didn't they, though? I agree. Good point, Kara. So this story, it's got a fairy tale quality to it. Like there's villains, there's heroes, there's helpers, and the little princess trying to find her way back home. So it does have that fairy tale feel. Was there any favorite pieces in this story that you liked? Did anybody have a place that really hit you hard and you really liked it a lot, or something someone said?
I liked it when Burke Allen came back with the candies from the vending machine and hearing Ernest shouting at him.
Oh, right.
So even though this is a sad part, I liked when she was reading the letter and she was talking about the dark thing on her chest.
Yes.
Really good way of describing her sadness.
Yes. Oh, well put.
My favorite part is probably at the end when she tells Gray that she loves her and she forgives her, because it kind of, the whole book is about sadness and leaving people behind, and it all warms up to the end.
Oh, well said. I like that too.
Favorite part is probably when Betty Allen makes 17 cakes. That's just cool.
I know you want to taste them. I have two things in there. I wanted to taste those cakes, and I wanted to hear Louisiana sing. I would have really liked to have both those pieces in reality because it just sounded so good, and all those cakes sounded delicious. I loved her characters. All the characters in the story, they kind of Louisiana kind of squeezes your heart. Louisiana Elefante was quite a little character. You can't help but love her. She was devious at times. She, tried to figure out how to not um, pay the dentist, but that was all because it was on her shoulders to try and help herself and her granny. Um, do you remember when, in the end, when she was singing, she kind of fainted and she saw all those people out in the audience? What was that about?
I feel like she was kind of imagining her own kind of ending.
Oh, that's an interesting way to see it. Yep,
Said before, it's kind of like the curse of sundering. She's all is imagining it's not that real. It's all mental. So it's kind of like that. She has all of these problems of Dr. Fox, Miss Ivy, Miss Bernice, and everything, and it's like all her sadness is just putting there. It's just put there into like one picture. So it's all like mental there.
All her problems are staring back at her, all the different things that are going wrong. Well put. Oh, I agree. Look, everybody's agreeing that. That's well said. Let's see. So I was reading a little bit about Kate DiCamillo, the author, and what she thought. And she says, I think this story is about empathy. Stories teach us how to be empathetic. And I think that's so true. And all the books that we read, the more we read, the better a person we are, because we see everybody else and the possibilities and the things that they live through. And we have more understanding for others and for ourselves. Louisiana really learned how to believe in herself. Kira?
Miss Ivy and Bernice and Miss Lulu, they're all kind of the bad guys, and they have no empathy, but like everyone else kind of does.
Yes, there's a lot of people that are very empathetic to her, but those two just they were kind of the villains kind of in the story. Kind of had to have that there. Good point. Stories teach us to be empathetic for others, but they also teach us to be empathetic for ourselves. And I think that's Louisiana's story. She learns to understand and be empathetic and have feelings for herself and give herself a little room to grow. There was one favorite part that I thought, I'm trying to remember what it was. Grandfather Burke lets her have his dessert. Remember when she came to eat that first night? Lets her have a dessert. And he tells her that it's for you, Doodlebug. Take what is offered to you. And I think that kind of went through her mind too, perhaps. Grandfather was a good little heart piece for her to look at when she decided, okay, I'm going to live with the Burkes. After she didn't win the cake, but she turned around and saw grandfather and Burke, and Mrs. Burke and Mr. Burke, and she said, I could live here. She has to find a place to live. Isn't that amazing? What a thing to have to make a decision about. But then the Reverend tells her, oh, your friends can come visit. And is that what happens in the end? The friends come to visit? So she still has her connections for people. Did any of you read the other book, The Nightingale? Here you did?
Yeah.
Raymie Nightingale, I did too. They were a bunch. DiCamillo really has interesting characters. There are a bunch of characters in that.
I read Beverly right here too.
Oh, I haven't read that. So do you suggest we should?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one to try and pick up and continue the story. I really like DiCamillo as an author. She has some really good insights and really writes in a beautiful manner. What else might you say? What was the one thing you took away from the story that you liked the most? I think I might have asked that already, but what was this story to you, Lauren?
Well, one thing that I also liked is I liked how Louisiana kind of said how that Betty Allen Burke's mom was kind of like the blue fairy from Pinocchio.
Oh, that's right. That was a beautiful piece. Blue Fairy and the mom were one and the same in a sense. That was a very good point. Kira.
So I kind of take away that there will always be a blue fairy in your life, and the blue fairy is kind of the person that guides you or the person that holds their arms out to you.
Oh, very nice, lovely. That blue fairy piece, very, very nicely put. So always keep your eye out for that blue fairy. Whatever happens, there's someone there that's going to be your fairy. Be it your mom, your dad, your best friend, someone else, you'll get there. And Louisiana did. She arrived and was happy there in the end. I really enjoyed this story. And you guys?
Yeah.
So onward to the next book. I enjoy these. These are really fun to do. Have a super summer, and it's almost over, and we'll be back again and probably in Zoom format. But here's to the rest of our summer being wonderful. You guys enjoy it and take care.